You are listening to the Bright Life Podcast, all about ways to stay inspired, chase your dreams, and find more gratitude in the highs and lows of the journey. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson. I'm a business owner, a part-time digital nomad, a self-growth junkie, a believer in other big-hearted women, and am all about sharing tips, tricks, lessons learned, and encouragement so we can all live our biggest, brightest lives. You ready? Let's do this. Hi. Okay, this episode is for you if you are wishing your dream would get to you faster. So whether you're building a business or some other creative project, a podcast, writing a book, building a keynote, wanting to get somewhere in your career or your life, and you're like, this is taking me forever. Why does it seem like everyone else is getting there so much faster? This episode is for you. And it was inspired by one of my mentors, Lacey Seitz, who is my business coach for years and is just such an amazing person. And she had this post the other day on Instagram about how she set her sights on this goal of $1 million year in her business. And for her, it didn't matter how long it took her to get there. It ended up taking about 2.5 years from when she set the goal to when she saw it realized. But at some point along the way, she realized that there was nothing else she wanted to be building. And so whether it took 1 year or 5 years or 10 or her life, it didn't really matter. And I thought, gosh, that is such a great perspective and reminder for so many of us in the building stage. So here's what I want you to think about. Does it really matter if it takes you 5 years to get to your dream? Does it really matter if it takes you 2 years or 10 years to get to your dream? Whatever you're rushing right now, whatever you're wishing you could skip past and get around, does it really matter if it takes you longer than you think or double the time you think to get to your goal? And there's a few pieces to this where I think it could shift your answer, and that's part of what I want to talk about today. So one of the interesting parts of Lacey's post was that it's what she wanted to build regardless, so it didn't really matter how long it took her. And I think that's the first thing to check in with yourself around. Are you really building what you would build no matter what? Because I think that changes your answer. I think if you're building the right thing that feels so aligned and that you couldn't imagine giving up for anything else, it helps the timeline fall away. I know that's been true for myself, where whenever I've been a little bit short-sighted around a goal or wanting to just get there, sometimes it's because I'm wanting to get there so then I can get to the thing that I really want to build. So maybe there's part of that for you if you're feeling a little bit still resistant to the timeline. Is this really the thing that you would build, even if it took you a lifetime to get there? When I contrast that feeling of the angst in getting there, I can compare it to when I wrote my book, where I had such a peace around it because it felt so aligned to me, and I didn't care if the book took me a lifetime, if I needed to spend 2 years getting it out there, if it took me 5 years to write. I trusted the timeline and I thought it would move a bit faster, but for me that was just what I wanted to put in the world. And so I trusted in the timeline, and it didn't really matter to me how long it took. I wanted it to be right, and I wanted it to be inspired in the thing that I felt like putting out there. So that was kind of the peace feeling versus these other feelings that I have had where I want something faster because I want to get to the next thing. So for you, check in with yourself. Number one, does it really matter if it takes you 5 years to get to your dream? And if so, would you build what you're building no matter what? And if you're not, and if you're thinking, no, I'm kind of getting here to get to the next thing, how could you shift that to maybe start to reorient to building the thing that you would build, even if it took you 15 years? I see this visual when I'm talking to you about Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, which you should Google. If you haven't seen it, it's this massive, beautiful church, and it's taken lifetimes to build. They're still working on it and renovating and building it, and the detail is so immaculate and so beautiful, but it became really this life work. And so I think of it almost like that, where if that's what you want to build and that's what you feel called to create, it doesn't matter how long it takes to get there as much, does it? The second part and question that I would consider if you're feeling still a little frustrated by the timeline is, have you given your dream long enough? Truly. Because when I have felt impatient, it's often because I'm seeing someone else who's maybe a little further along or who started before me, and I'm thinking they're already there, and how did they get there so fast, and why was it easier for them? And it's probably usually not the case. It's just that they have been at it longer. They have put in maybe 5 years more than I have, or 10 years more than I have. And so, of course, they're in a different position. And so instead of posting for a month and then wondering why you don't get the result, or the client's knocking down your door, or even for a year, have you given the dream long enough to actually be realized? This is kind of like a health goal in a way, right? Where you go to the gym for 3 days, and then if you don't see an immediate result, you're like, this isn't even working. Why would I keep going? But if you consistently went and did those healthy habits every single day for a year, regardless of what a scale said or anything else, regardless of whether you messed up one day or missed a day here, you just kept consistently going, you eventually would see the result that you want. And so the same thing applies to business, to writing a book, to any of your creative projects or art or things that you're building maybe with your family. It's like, have you given it long enough where the dream can truly take root? And in my experience, sometimes with business, it's longer than you think. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that it takes people time to hear what you're doing, enough times that they really get it, really hear it and know. It then takes them a little bit longer to trust and see your consistency and feel safe working with you, because they know you're really truly about this and you have been consistently. And so none of that stuff is really on you. It's just on time. It just takes time for things to grow and build upon each other and to finally land and resonate. The converse of that, and I think which is also reassuring, is that things tend to never fall apart as fast as you think they will. So if you're in kind of this impatient spiral because you feel like the money's not coming in, or you need to build something faster, it just has to work for your life. The other thing that was really helpful for me to realize when I got into business is that, you know what? Things may take longer than you want them to grow, but they also take longer than you think they will to fall apart. So meaning, if you're needing more money and that's where the impatience comes from, there's a million side hustles that you can do and ways that you can freelance or make money on the side to support your dream. If you are having a bad day in business, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the whole business. It just could be a way to look at, what's that one thing in this business that I don't like? How can I tweak that? And that might change your whole experience of the business. You know, if you are struggling to put your book out there or to your creative project and you're just not sure how to do it, or it feels like people aren't resonating with it, there's so many little tiny steps that you can take to course correct and to get on the right track. And that becomes even easier when you remember that this is a long game and that this could be something you are building for your entire life. This could be not just a job for you, but your life's work and message and legacy. So it's okay if you make all these little course corrections along the way. You're like in this for a lifetime, right? The last piece of this that I'll leave with you is something that I've realized and learned the hard way, and that is that often changing things takes longer. So I see this so often with new entrepreneurs, and I've been there myself, where maybe you, after 2 years of really pushing for this one goal, you want to switch it all up because you see something else and feel like that could be easier. I definitely have done this. And yet what I've learned is, and what I've observed from so many others, is the people who just consistently stick with the same thing for years and years are the ones that see success. If you're constantly restarting over every year or every 2 years and building something brand new, you're going to always reach that threshold of struggling to get traction around that 1 year or 2 year mark, and then you pivot and all those 2 years are lost. Now, it's not saying don't pivot and don't change and don't move to the more aligned thing, right? I have a whole chapter in my book around pivoting and the grace you can give yourself there. But I think it really comes down to that first question we asked in this episode, which is, are you building the right thing? Is this the thing that you would build if it took you 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years to reach your goal? And if not, sure, then maybe make some shifts so that you can answer yes and you can stay in it longer. But I hope something in here just kind of makes your body relax and go, Okay, number one, does it really matter if it takes you 5 years until you see your dream realized? Number two is what you're building, what you'd want to build, even if it took you that long. And if not, what would you build? And maybe you can switch to that. Number three, have you given it long enough? Have you really given it long enough to see if you can gain traction, or to see if there's little course corrections you can make to make this the right thing for you and the thing that you can sustain forever? And if you can answer those questions honestly and feel like you're really building the right thing, then I hope it allows you to relax and to know that you're on the right journey, that there is some just divine order and timing in things, and that, remember, it's the journey. You're going to get to your goal one day, and for a moment you'll get that feeling of like, yes, I did it. But I swear to you, it will be the journey that you look back on and the woman that you became along the way that really, really gives you the gratitude and the satisfaction. And that will be the truth. So yes, chase the dream and the goal and the big achievements. Of course, fill your life with these visions that inspire you. But don't remember that what you really look back on and feel gratitude for is the day-to-day, and is the you that you are right now, and what you're overcoming, and what that's growing inside of you, and the resolve that it's building, and the woman it's making you. That is what you will look back on one day, and it's the days that you will remember, and the moments and experiences of your life, more so than those mountaintop moments that you get once every 5 years or so. So just some encouragement to keep at it, that it's okay if you do need to change to the more aligned thing. But if you're doing the thing that you feel lit up by, just give yourself some patience. Know that you're on the right path. Trust the timing of your journey. And know that I so believe in you. I'm so grateful you're here. And I really hope that this encourages you this week. If it does, please share and tag me on Instagram at @HiJessicaJohnson. And I will see you back here next week. Thank you so much for listening in. If you love this episode, I have 2 things you are going to love. One is a free copywriter training full of 5 steps to build a profitable copywriting business as your own boss, no matter how much experience you're starting with. Copywriting is what took me from a 9-to-5 to freedom as my own boss, to travel, choose my schedule, replace my corporate income, and have time to work on creative projects like this podcast. And I'd love to give other women the same opportunity. Another, of course, is my book, Your Bright Life. You can find it on Amazon or Audible, where I narrate the audiobook, so it's kind of like a podcast in book form. All of these things are in the podcast show notes. Thank you again for listening. I appreciate you and your review so much, and I'll see you back here next Thursday.